advantage. You're going for a support counter pick that is really going to create an edge. But I do think, you know, you have to have some sort of a big counter pick on red side for it to make any sense whatsoever. EG already back to the Seraphine. This time, Senna is up. So they could actually do Senna Seraphine bot if they want.
Sarah Seraphine Swain, the cursed comp.
Sarah Seraphine Swain.
Sarah Seraphine Swain. Sarah Seraphine.
Sarah Seraphine.
Just start saying words the other
Yeah.
Swainaphine. Swaina Sarah.
He's working on his letters. He already got the numbers.
Swaina
He knew red and blue. He's got the colors.
I'm ready to go, dude. I'm learning. Before long, I'm gonna be able to spell my own name. Anyway, Inspired is back on Sejuani, the 9-1 and 10 performance from game number 2, and Yone swiftly locked in.
So,
I honestly expect to see this ORnn locked as well.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, TSM are going back to their full scaling late game kind of situation that they did last time. In game 1 that they won, it was also last pick Chime that was able to find like the angle with the Janna. That was kind of surprising. So I like this, that both teams are kind of going back to their biggest identities.
But this time, EG actually has a lot of scaling themselves. Yone scales really, really well. Seraphine obviously scales really, really well. So does the Sejuani. Sejuani could actually be flex here. I think everyone knows Jojopyun is the one piloting the Yone. I don't think that's going to be a big surprise. Normally you would talk about it as a flex, but you know, I do think that the Sejuani is flexible here. And it is going to be that Senna banned away as it was last time the Seraphine was grabbed up. Of course, they can do something like an Alistar if they want. I think that's a pretty standard option into the Sivir, unless of course TSM takes it away, but I'm not really expecting that.
Yeah, they also have the Vi still up as well. Lulu taking out, getting rid of some of the enchanters. I hope it's not the Vi angle. We always talk about Vi into Seraphine comps. I really hope that they go for something that has a little bit more ability to play at range.
So it is actually the Xin getting locked in here.
Okay.
I was going to say, I wouldn't be so shocked if it was a Renata coming through for TSM. I feel like it's actually a pretty decent opportunity when there is that Yone coming across, but maybe looking for something a little bit spicier, wanting to see that full bot lane to try to really create some sort of a 2v2 advantage. It is going to be the Jax here up on the top side for impact. So this is really powerful 1-3-1 potentially. Seraphine does actually have pretty solid wave clear to hold down mid lane. If they are to go towards that, a Mumu would be interesting. I would be surprised if it's the pick. I don't think it really makes sense into the Sivir.
Yeah, you have to think this is a Nautilus, most likely, while obviously Sivir...
Not Alistar?
You could go Alistar again. I feel like the Seraphine Nautilus lane does have a lot of laning power. Actually, we've seen it win lane a number of times, and while it doesn't have the kill threat that you might want, because if you block the hook pre-6 and post-6, you can block the depth charge quite easily as Sivir. It's more about just getting on top of, say, the Azir. There's like enough targets that you can just throw that out and at least force them back.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes sense. I think, you know, you make a lot of good points. It's just interesting. I'm just so used to seeing the Alistar get locked in as an answer, and I do think it's going to be the Renata. So as I called it, is going to be that Renata. I think it's actually a really smart answer into the composition. It does look like EG are relatively single target focused. They want to be diving. They want to be bursting someone down. Renata can help to answer that really, really effectively. You also have the ability to potentially land that hostile takeover on a Jax, on a Yone, who are both very heavily auto attack based, can put out a lot of damage to their own team. And even just the space you can actually create with that is quite effective. Between that and the Azir wall and all of these different tools, TSM is going to have a pretty strong 5v5, but I do think EG as well has strong 5v5 if they're coming from multiple angles, and has a really good 1-3-1.
Yeah, the 1-3-1 here I think is significantly stronger than anything we've seen out of either side.
I'm excited to see if TSM is going to have a bit of a bounce back game here. Game 3, definitely the most one-sided. TSM looking very competitive in game number 1 and 2. You know, really looking like they can go back and forth here with EG. I'm excited to see if they're going to be able to pull anything like that off in this one. They definitely do have some really, really powerful scaling. Of course, there is great scaling on EG's side, but I would say it's more heavily execution-based. When you are playing these melee divers, you've got to really be on point with the engage in these team fights.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of peel tools available for TSM if you don't have a clean engage. Renata Berserk is incredible. Azir can shove you off. You can have the knockback by the Xin Zhao. ORnn can put out a lot of CC.
Is he typing?
I think he was typing.
Okay.
I think they might have got him.
Looking at Twitter!
Tactical in chat said, were you looking at Twitter? And Jojopyun says yes.
Yeah, whatever. I don't have anything to say about that. But it's going to be really exciting to actually see how this matchup goes, because this is something that we have seen kind of come to light as a counter to the Azir. That's something that Palafox did actually really enjoy playing himself. It can be very difficult for the Azir to actually match up, especially once you have that E unlocked. Once you do hit that level 2, you jump forward with the E, you start trading very heavily into the Azir. The Azir can't really match those trades. You're kind of forced in this awkward situation where you're just retreating. And even if you look post 6 for an ulti, well, then he just snaps back to the shadow. So it's very difficult to actually deal with Yone in those situations.
Soul Unbound is such an incredibly powerful basic ability, stronger than some of the ults in the game, honestly.
Yeah.
Like the ability to use it offensively and guarantee that you've got a way back out. Also, as we go into the tri-lane here, I just really have to compliment Impact's choice of skin here. Just using the World Championship Jax for this to really send a message home.
I feel like anytime he plays Jax these days, you see him in the World Championship Jax. If you have a skin named after you,
I mean, there's no reason not to, right? That's your skin.
gotta flex on him like that.
That's your trophy you're beating him over the head with. That's just the kind of championship attitude that you need to seal this one away, get the win, and go on to play Team Liquid on Sunday.
We'll have to see if he can do it. Obviously, you have Inspire clearing bot to top, and Spica clearing away from him, so a little bit of resources probably going to be going in Impact's way, drop a ward so you can kind of keep just perma pushing. I don't think it's necessarily a lane that you're going to dive unless you can get solo low, and at half health right now, maybe he can.
Jax also really just likes to get some levels nice and early. We know that the power of this champion depends a lot on having the extra points in those skills. The W in particular, Empower is a really, really bad skill at like level 1. It doesn't add a lot of damage. It has a high cooldown, but as you get levels into it, incredible DPS.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can see, over towards mid lane, Jojo actually did have to use his health potion. He is taxing Maple's mana here pretty heavily, but the early damage he took is actually kind of relevant. He did take 3 autos essentially with that soldier for free. The wave is not in a great spot, but it is worth mentioning that he is playing TP. Impact is playing Flash TP, so there's no sort of Ignite Jax. So I do think we're going to see Impact play this pretty patiently, not really feeling any pressure to get anything crazy done. He can just look to scale this out.
Bot lane as well, kind of playing it more defensively, holding the wave right in front of their turret for EG, given that they knew Inspire was moving up to the top side of the map. There's a lot of lanes for Nautilus where you can kind of get the shove early with E plus just kind of AoE damage from your marksman. Obviously, Seraphine, not quite that, but your Q splash can clear a wave out pretty quickly. Back when you used to see a lot of Kai'Sa, Nautilus, it was the same reason. You both just kind of use your AoE abilities. If they're playing in the wave, they get hit, and then you also get to clear it out at the same time.
A little bit of a trade back and forth here in the top side. Gold nice and close between both teams here early on. Nobody getting any insane lane advantages, but Inspired's looking to show up and get an advantage here for his top laner. He sits on a ward for an extra second there. And Solo's just fine. Impact only has 300 HP. The fact that Solo's walking back up lets EG know, yeah, you shouldn't be going for this.
Yep, and he's even going to interrupt the recall. Just pretending he doesn't actually have it warded, walking all the way up, so Inspired does not cancel that early, being as annoying as he possibly can here. Without Counter-Strike, you actually be really careful when you are playing into the ORnn, because those brutal passive autos do so much damage. They could potentially look to set up a dive of their own here. Inspired is gone.
Yeah, this is potential bad news. Impact has already used the helicopter, and he is grounded. TSM first blood.
That was such good communication between Solo and Spica. You saw Spica actually hover on the ramp for a couple seconds to make sure that the recall completed by Inspire before he actually went up and then dropped the pink ward to make sure, hey, if we show too soon, Inspire will stay around, we won't get this kill. That was just such a heads-up play by Spica.
Yeah, that was really nicely done. And Spica had actually already based, Inspire had not, so even having the additional damage there to make it happen. Impact getting chunked out, and despite the fact that Inspired's the one who actually heads towards top side first, it is their team that gets punished on it. Inspired trying to get something back though. Very, very standard play here. When the enemy jungle shows top, you look for a play down towards bot, and now they're potentially going for a dive here around mid.
Oh, flash away from Maple to keep himself safe. Outplay from Maple, scooping them all back. EG's too far forward. EG screwed that up, and TSM punishes hard.
That is huge from Maple, flashing the ult and then getting the scoop back on multiple members there. Chime makes the roam up, knowing that the dive could be coming in. Spica already in the area. It's 3-0 TSM. There are 1,400 gold here, only 6 minutes in.
Shades of game 1 as well, with what you would think is the scaling advantage in their favor. Sivir, ORnn, and Azir, where I think the 3 champions they actually used in game 1. And again, off to such a good start. Maple, nice sidestep on the hook as well. Just played that one as cleanly as you could. Even without the backup coming, he probably just lived through that dive by himself. And at the same time, because Spica was in the area, because Renata was already on the way, flashing that, sidestep the hook, ult as they come in to make sure the auto doesn't even get the root off on him.
Yep.
Stops the charge as well from Sejuani.
Yeah, even sidesteps the Sejuani W, right? Like, he basically avoided everything. You couldn't really do it any better than that. And then Chime arrives, has the handshake, and they get both of those kills. This is massive for TSM, especially after last game, how bad that dive went early bot. It was very clear that the game was going to be incredibly hard for them really early on. And now the shoe is on the other foot here, and it's Maple out to a strong early lead.
He was a key factor in that game 1 win as well, finding that kind of Drake fight angle. His Azir, no joke, I'm kind of surprised to see that he got his hands on it for a second time this series.
Maple's Azir truly showing up as a game changer here. Might be exactly what TSM needs to take us to a game number 5. Back up here in top side, Warden's Mail completed for Solo. Very, very powerful laning item. Back when Bramblevest used to be the auto buy for all the tanks into fighters, these days people have realized the raw defensive power of Warden's Mail, unless you're against somebody who just revolves around healing, is very potent.
Makes it difficult for Impact to try and win the 1v1. Of course, you can still farm up in scale. Just currently, you're not going to be able to do that until about 1-2 items more likely. And just on the Maple point, like we were talking about this a bit in game 1, 6 Worlds appearances by this guy. He is one of the most storied players in LoL esports history.
Yep.
And he's someone you can't count out. You give him the highest presence champion in the meta in Azir. The second game in a row, he might be able to carry for them. And TSM, like we said, has a lot of experience in their hand. Yeah, they got rocked in game 3, but a lot of these guys have been through difficult series before and knows what it takes.
Impact Solo in a long extended fight. Spica will be making his way up here first. He sweeps over that ward, which means that Impact is aware he's on the way, has to back up a little bit further. Chime is also up here. Inspired is on the Herald, but there's so many bodies nearby from TSM. EG's bringing up the whole crew now as well. We might get a full-on team fight 8.5 minutes into the game. EG committing to the Herald. TSM's coming in. The ORnn has been summoned up. Who's gonna die first? A lot of damage pouring through. It's gonna be stolen away by Spica. TSM finds a kill, finds the Herald, finds another one, double back over to Spica. But they do lose Chime. Impact and Danny try to get away, but Danny falls too. TSM get a 3-for-1 and steal the objective.
Yeah, TSM get everything, and Tactical basically wasn't even there. He was behind the play. That was a 4v5 essentially for TSM. They're nearly 3K ahead. Spica 5-0-1 here. I mean, look at the minimap. Look at where Tactical is when the fight is actually breaking out. This is just a straight up 4v5, but the ORnn ulti connecting across so many people. Danny goes in for the R flash there, connects the charm on so many members on the other side, but they just don't have the damage to actually burst them down. And Spica rocks through Jojo. Vulcan is incredibly low. Just now does Tactical arrive, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, they only killed the Renata, who even actually got a bailout on herself, I believe, when they were able to finish off Jojo right away, I think it was. So able to kind of make EG have to commit all those extra resources. Both teams have so much kind of engage options. You have the Seraphine ult, the Sejuani ult, the Yone ult, and obviously Solo has so many ways to stop that. Like you said, that perfectly timed ORnn ultimate to knock everyone up as they came in, followed up by the Azir ultimate. So many peel tools, and now just feels like they're so far ahead.
What a game 4 for TSM. In 10 minutes, they've got 6 kills and a 2,500 gold lead. No Drake taken yet by either side, which is a stark departure from what we've seen so far in the series, with EG having a lot of focus on early Drake control.
The fact that TSM has a scaling advantage means they don't need to really stack dragons as a win con. It's nice if you can get them, which they can now after having all this control in the game, but there was no early priority on it for them because they already had the ability to take fights in the late game. And Spica, man, 5-0-1, 100% kill participation. Azael, you were talking about it at the top of the day. #1 in the league in kill participation. No jungler, you could argue, is more important to the overall team's playmaking.
Yeah, I mean, he is their playmaking, right? He's pretty much all of it. Is Jojo going to be able to get Maple to actually force out the ulti there? Did not use an ultimate of his own. You know, that is how the matchup can go. Once you start getting some levels, you start getting some items, you really can get aggressive with this trading, but Maple does not need to win the 1v1. He just needs to be able to continue keeping that farm high, playing for the 5v5. TSM really in their comfort zone right now, and it's not going to get better anytime soon here for EG. but they do have the ability to battle back in this game. They have the ability to spread the map and to really continue to get that scaling of their own in.
And based on this early game, hold on 1 second. 1 second here. Looks like we might have some problems. All right, Impact gets away for now. But based on this early game and TSM's lead that they've built so far, I think this now almost demands a 1-3-1 approach from EG as a win condition.
And one of the nice things about that is because so much of the gold is on Spica, yes, he's absolutely terrifying as you see him try and scrap out.
Uh-oh. He's made his way in, but does he want to stick around that long? Spica still surviving. Finally going to be shut down by Jojo, but it'll be a 1-for-1 trade. Renata ulti over the wall. Solo stands alone.
No flash.
EG looks for a little more, but Maple's over the wall. That Azir, that's the artillery. That's the heavy cannon that can take these guys out. Jojo with a flash away, but he'll burn and burn and burn and burn. Chime takes him down.
Yeah, they're going to get another kill there. TSM coming slightly ahead, I think, but at the end of the day, it is a shutdown for Jojo onto Spica, who dove very deep in there and does get taken down.
I overall like the idea by Spica. The fact that he actually flashes in with his ultimate getting out of Jojopyun. The problem is Solo there biffed his ultimate. If he was able to get that follow-up, you might have been able to keep Spica up and alive to get the first kill. You start getting Triumph healing, you have your Conqueror going. Like, there's a world where if that ultimate from Solo came through, this is just a clean fight win for TSM. They still come out ahead, and it kind of speaks to how much leg room they've bought themselves by that they don't even need to play it perfectly to still win these fights.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't even catch the missed ulti there in the first play, but you know, Solo playing it well in the tail end, landing the knockups, kiting back into that little alcove where Maple can hit them over the wall so they can't actually continue on the fight. And you saw the value that Chime actually got there with the hostile takeover. When that connects on Yone and Jax, you know, these are squishy champions that are relying on their mobility to really keep them safe and put out a lot of auto attack damage. So, you know, not only are you kind of getting shredded by your own teammates, well, it's a free fire for these Azir and the Sivir.
And you just saw the Herald crash into the tier 1 turret top here. I believe it was just about to expire. They sort of just needed to drop that up there to get some sort of value out of it. The charge does complete. They'll take the 2 plates with about 30 seconds to go before the plates disappear. So honestly, doesn't work out too bad.
No, you're able to get some gold onto Solo, which is nice. The funny thing is, because Jojo, as we see the pause come through,
I need you to think about that a little bit more. I need you to let that, I need you to ruminate.
Gives you a timeout.
Yeah. Fortunately, the network gods have forgiven TSM, not making them dwell on it any longer. Back into the game. TSM getting a push down the bot side of the map. Tactical going to grab some turret plates right before they drop.
Spica, man. The FTX total gold, he is so far ahead. Inspired is down at 4K. He's 2,600 gold ahead of his opponent in that 1v1. Spica is just monstrously strong. When you're this far ahead as Xin, especially when he actually hits his early second item, you can win 1v1s against a lot of these people. Like, you can win a 1v1 against Yone. You can get in on Danny and just solo kill him in these fights if you have that angle. Because between challenging smite and a massive early advantage, it is really tough to duel against a turbo-fed jungler like that.
Yeah, Spica showing why he was the league MVP just last summer, a year ago.
And I mean,
put the team on his back.
Coming into this series, we said we wanted to see like those Apex level, MVP level performances from these two junglers. Inspired had his 9-1-10 game 2 on Sejuani. Now here's Spica taking over in game number 4, 5-1-2 on the Xin Zhao. I think we're getting some of those top level performances from these guys.
We absolutely are, right? And it's going to potentially come down to who can have those big moments, right? You know, when you have these big fights around objectives, it's about the execution. EG moving up towards this side of the map, knows the Herald may be going on, but I don't think there's anything they can really do about it.
No.
But they're in a tough position. Already 5K down, already lost first tower. You give up second Herald, well, it may mean your mid tower as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're on 1 item power spike, so it's not the worst timing in the world to try and test TSM a little bit here, but given that Danny was just resetting on the map during that time period, no surprise that they kind of just said, no chance we can fight this one. We'll see if it's the Dragon instead that they choose to try and contest. It's spawning in just 1 second.
I mean, I think they're not going to contest anything. Bounties are spawned, so I think you go for side lane towers. You just try to take tier 1s.
Ooh, good call.
You're playing Blade of the Rune King as well, so like that is much more of a 1v1 style build than it is about team fights where you want crit, you want that 100-0 threat. We might see Inspired, you know, try to flip a steal, look for something like that to try to really slow down any potential stack, but I do think it's about just playing towards those side lanes and trying to get as much gold as you possibly can.
There's the ward over the wall. They want to go in and try to
together.
fight for it. Nope, it's secured by Spica. It's taken by TSM, and Jojo and Inspired got to get right back over the wall.
Able to get out without dying for EG. Not the worst idea to just pop your head in, try and get a look. Does cost Inspired his flash, which means not much playmaking, or a little bit worse playmaking for the next couple of minutes here if you do try and make one of these plays in the side lane with Impact or Jojo. But I don't hate the idea of buying more time if you're able to smite that one away. Grabbing an Infernal buff as well feels pretty good.
Yeah, plus it's an objective bounty on that as well, right? So if you do actually steal it, it's worth that much more. You're gonna get a couple hundred extra gold for your team. So takes the swing, but it is a miss, unfortunately, for EG. And this one, just slowly moving more and more in the favor of TSM. Even if you want to talk about the ability to potentially 1-3-1 and slow down the game and split the map, it's so hard to do that when you're gonna have Soul Point here in 4 minutes that TSM can bring themselves to, and Ocean Soul is gonna make it impossible to actually threaten the ORnn in the 1v1. So that really eliminates any sort of a side lane win condition, it feels like. So EG may have to fight a third dragon, and I just don't know they're ready for it.
This is a bit troublesome for Evil Geniuses. Jojo's gonna get dove here. Yeah, Vulcan's right behind him. Comes in for the ulti on top of the Azir, but he's not going to get a lot out of it. Spica's at 40%, but now Vulcan's the target. They go after the support and they found him. Inspired jumps in here for the ulti underneath the turret. Jojo wants to follow up, but Solo's able to get away.
Here's
Spica's
Impact.
still gonna stay alive. Impact coming in from the side. Inspired kills Solo. Impact will not get a follow-up kill here just yet. Danny's ready to join the fray, but can he get anything? Seraphine ulti's still ready to go, but they're not gonna use it. It'll be a 1-for-1 trade.
EG, it was a question of who's baiting who. Turns out it was EG with Vulcan staying in the brush on the backside. Impact warded out here, doesn't know it yet. But yeah, that was a nice flank by EG. They thought, TSM, we're gonna get this sick dive off. There's no one here defending Impact, or excuse me, Jojopyun, and already Vulcan was able to force out so many things from Maple to stop that dive.
And Jojo actually straight TP to top lane, and what is this build? Is he going Stoneplate? Or no, he's gonna go tank on him. He's actually gonna go Sunfire. So he's gonna go Blade of the Rune King, Sunfire, Yone. I can't say I've seen this. I mean, this is the Renekton build. It feels like you're just trying to scrap. You are gonna have like a really late spike. Like your crit items are gonna come through so late if he's even gonna go for them at all. But here it is one more time. Flash hook has to be flashed out. The ulti does connect there. ORnn comes through. Nice knock up and has the ulti buffer to then follow up. The Hostile Takeover buying some time as well.
And you saw there, Solo tried to have a nice immune on the Sejuani ult. Did actually land it, but was still stunned coming out of it. And then Jojo was able to land the follow-up CC, the Impact flank there. Able to get on top of Spica as well. Super well fought, but doesn't look like we're done yet.
We are not, my friends. TSM coming in. They're looking for Vulcan. He goes berserk. He's pulled right on back. Seraphine ulti comes in over the wall, but Vulcan is still about to die. He doesn't drop just yet, but Solo mows him over with the R2.
Snipes him with the ORnn ult, finishes off the kill. 1-for-0 for TSM.
Nicely done there by TSM, getting the kill. Oh, an ulti backwards.
Jojo doing a good job buffering that one, but is it good enough? No, sir. Tactical with a flash away. Both TSM carries barely living, but that's what you get for a 6,000 gold lead.
Absolutely, they just slink out of there. Tactical and Maple, no flash, no cleanse. They get out alive. That is absolutely huge, and you have to think, if that was a different build, would that have been a kill? You guys, we would have seen Jojo go down earlier, but just not a lot of burst at all in this build. It is very auto attack based. It's scrappy. I don't know.
I think the idea behind the build is paired with Seraphine, shielding and healing technically gets more value because the HP that comes in gets the extra benefit from being tankier. You're thinking that these fights are not going to be about necessarily insta-blowing somebody up. Maybe you're playing for a little bit longer of a team fight. There are a lot of these builds that float around in solo queue and stuff. These kind of like, you take an assassin, you slap a tank item on them, and suddenly they become a really annoying bruiser. I can see that angle with the Blade of the Rune King. You have a lot of sticking power, but just not necessarily what I would have expected.
I get the thought process, but I don't agree with it in this game, because especially from behind, which they're already way down when you start building the Sunfire, I really fail to see how you're going to win a team fight without one-shotting Maple or Tactical, right? And I think that is going to be very, very difficult for them to do. But maybe he's saying, hey, it's more my job to actually just set up the CC, and we're going to have enough damage behind it. But Solo looking for an engage here on a Danny.
You want to talk about setting up CC? ORnn is adept at that. Solo gets hit with the Sejuani ulti there from the side. So TSM are not going to find the engage they were hoping for. Impact jumps in after Solo. Deploying the helicopter now, switching the targeting over to Chime. He fires off the hostile takeover. Jojo stuck in the middle of everybody. The tank items keep him alive, and Tactical's dead. Now they're switching the targeting over to Spica. Now he's about to die. Impact takes another, and EG just got 2.
EG get 2. They'll get the bounty on the Dragon. Can they actually get over to the Baron as well? I don't think so, because the respawn timers would be too short, and Maple's still full health. But that is a big team fight win there for EG. It does pull them a little bit closer here in this game.
And right here, it's critical that's ult for ult. Solo is the primary engage that they have, and the fact that you have Inspire kind of just ulting to make sure that there's no follow-up. Now it's a lot harder for TSM to pick their fight, and they get split here. Chime and Solo are going to head back into the river, while the main carries of TSM all end up in lane, and this gives Impact a nice setup, double stun onto Chime, and kind of forces out the other big team fight tool from Chime right away, but doesn't land onto a lot of the main members.
And it's all about the hook from Vulcan, you know, finds Tactical as he walks in, lands the hook, lands the passive auto, then Jojo can have the layering of his own ultimate there, and utilizing that E, hiding it out, using the max duration there to just stay out of range of Spica so he can't get any sort of a counter kill. It's played out very well there for EG, and they are closing in now on their second items here. Should be nearly enough gold there in pocket for Jojo. The Frozen Heart is going to be done here shortly for Impact as well.
So, Evil Geniuses had a very important fight there. They stopped the soul stack. They avoid a stop this or soul situation for TSM 4 minutes from now, and they close that gold gap from about 7K down to 5K. Now, you still don't want to be 5,000 gold down at 22 minutes in a game of Legends. This is game of League of Legends. Sorry, it's been a long day.
You're good.
Anyway, this is still a very uphill battle for Evil Geniuses, but they just showed that they can do what you were talking about from game number 1, Mark, and find those angles, find those ways in to make life tough for TSM.
Yeah, so just stop the momentum a little bit. Show TSM that you have to put some thought into how you engage these fights, because if you think you can just brute force through a Seraphine, Sejuani, Nautilus conflict, there's still a ton of CC on the side of EG, and so if you mess up and you lose some of your own ultimates, they can then jump on you and punish you.
Well, I think one of the key things here is TSM lost their battle lines, right? You need to have Azir and Sivir behind the front line, you know, behind Solo, behind Spica. They did not have that. Jojo scouts out that the Baron is going on. It's a long-range ward there, but it does mean that he is on cooldown. They're looking to potentially turn, didn't want to fully commit to that, as it is still early on and it's quite dangerous.
Yeah, Yone's such a silly champ.
You don't like the yo-yo back?
Pop the button and run at him as fast as you can and then just immediately go back. But now they're going in. Spica's here on the front. Danny's going to be targeted. TSM looks for the enemy bot lane carry and they found him. Jojo tries to reset his position, and EG will not break the battle lines this time. TSM charges forward as Jojo and Impact are too low to continue fighting, and TSM has a shot at the Baron.
Yeah, they're going to go right over for it. Inspired trying to delay as much as he possibly can, but with Danny going down there, it's TSM's Baron to take. They're going to force on this for sure. Impact does have his TP, so does Jojopyun, but there's no ultis available. It's so hard to see them getting there in time.
Okay, EG, they're making the call to try to fight for this, but the Baron is already gone. There's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, no way to stop that. TSM's Baron take is so fast, and such a good job there by Solo and Spica being the two primary people who hopped on top of Danny, blew him up at the start of the fight. They have been doing this for the majority of the series. This is the second Seraphine game in a row where they know, like, this is the guy we need to kill at the start of this fight and make sure he can't prop up the front line and melee members of EG.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're going to see this one more time. You know, just looking for Danny here through mid lane. This time, all of TSM is together. The carries behind the tanks here. Inspired and Jojo trying to go back in that back line and really push them away. But it's Spica and Solo getting in onto Danny. He didn't quite have the flash. You can see the cooldown at the bottom of your screen was just barely not up. He gets burst down despite the fact that Impact's there trying to peel. The rest of the team is coming back to try to keep him safe. And with him down, TSM turned for an easy Baron.
So one thing that I always like to see is stories told through items. As soon as he completes the Sunfire Aegis, Jojo just buys the Wrath Potion. He's saying, look, this game's pretty much done. Either we have to get a slam dunk fight now, or we're just gonna slowly lose under the weight of this TSM lead. So I think EG's got one big fight left in him.
Yeah, we talk about when you have these short-range melee compositions, how hard it is to defend your base from a siege that a Sivir and Azir can kind of throw at you. So maybe not during the pushes, but later on you can see that at some point Jojo's going to pop that whenever they think it's their time to go. Maybe it's in 30 seconds of this next Ocean Dragon. rather than trying to defend their base, they can try and do those flank maneuvers that we saw in game 1 that almost brought them back then.
And I'm guessing with the other Chain Vest, he's going Death Dance.
Yeah.
Is kind of my assumption here. So it's a very strange Yone build. It's this kind of bruiser build. It may be something, that is gaining popularity that I just haven't seen. Definitely can happen, but, it doesn't really feel like it fits the playstyle of this comp. And it is going to be a struggle already when you're this far down to be able to burst down that back line, but they'll have to have the perfect combo to want to be able to do it.
And it's up to TSM to not let him have that. Don't give him the opening. Don't put Tactical in a spot where these carries can jump on him. TSM are going to start up the Drake. TSM still command Baron and a 7,000 gold lead. Solo's in the spot to try to zone away everybody from Evil Geniuses.
Has a flank angle.
Inspired goes over the wall. He's in the pit now. He's just going to get jumped on. Maple and Spica go in for him. Inspired is rooted up here on the front line. Jojo wants to go over the wall, but Inspired's already dead. TSM is out fighting them the entire time. Impact wants to get away, but now he's stuck on the wrong side of the river. It's going to be Drake and Soul Point for TSM with 2 kills as the cherry on top.
The battle lines were perfect that time for TSM. Solo was 1v3 basically, zoning out multiple members of EG, making it so it was so easy for Maple to go in there, scoop Inspired, finish him off, get the dragon, and now try to end the game.
Spica can just chase after Jojo. He's not worried about losing a 1v1 to a tank Yone. He can just keep chasing after, keeping this going. He's got Maw, he's got Death's Dance. He's the one who has brought TSM to this spot.
Yeah, 9.5k ahead now. TSM gonna crack the first inhibitor here. Even with Impact having a good angle for that flank, getting in onto Tactical, doesn't really have the damage to threaten him at this point of the game. They're just simply too far behind, and Solo zoning the rest of EG out meant there was no assistance on taking down those backline members. So for EG now, it's desperation. They're trying to potentially find a pick before TSM can get back and spend their money.
Oh, Maple getting hit by that Sejuani ulti, but nobody's around. Nobody's even close. And now TSM's ready to try to turn it right back against him.
Spica.
Impact makes his way in as the Fate Seal comes through. Jojo looks for the damage, but he doesn't have any. Spica now continuing to dive in. He doesn't know how to retreat, and he doesn't need to. They'll lead the charge and eradicate Evil Geniuses.
TSM ace EG in the bot lane. They're gonna push us to game 5. If there's one thing about North American playoffs, you know it's going to the full series.
Nobody predicted a 3-2 on this one, but here we are. TSM will rise to the occasion and bring the defending champions to a 5th and final game to see who gets to move on.
Spica and Maple, monster performances in this one. 7-2-11 for Spica, 6-0-9. A quadra kill to end it for Maple. TSM pushing the #1 seed here to match point. It's Silver Scrapes, 7th seed versus the defending champion, the 1st seed from Summer Split. This would be one of the biggest upsets I feel like we have ever seen, maybe the biggest upset ever in LCS playoff history.
Well, actually, I would say there's one that would outrank it, and that was back when TSM was king
versus Clutch.
And Clutch Gaming were the ones to knock them off the throne.
It's crazy. It's in that ballpark because this is EG who also, like you said, won Spring and dominated 15-3 in the regular season. I don't think that previous TSM that was that upset was that dominant that year. I think that was the soup year that everyone was talking about, where every team was like 11-5 or whatever it was.
And Clutch was the 6th seed, right? The 7th seed didn't even make playoffs in that format, right? This is the 7th seed here. TSM very close to knocking down EG in what has just been such a weird day.
And I'm gonna say it, if you're EG, Solo's ORnn is a problem.
Yeah.
Maple's Azir is a problem. That's 2 big old problems that you cannot have to deal with if you want to win this game 5. TSM has showed this is the recipe for success. It's a little bit of ORnn, it's a whole lot of Azir, and then you're just having a great time. That's the recipe for dub song.
We're going late.
And that's what TSM is doing.